Spokane Valley could become a sanctuary city of a different
Councilman
kind.
Caleb Collier says that this
I'm proposing that the city of Spokane Valley issue a proclamation stating that our city is a Second Amendment sanctuary city.
Welcome to the fire.
Today on Church and State, Restoring Washington with Alan Nolan. Hello, Christian Patriots, and welcome to Church and State, where we drive morality and religion over tolerance and apathy. And I'm your host, Caleb Collier, once again, your favorite far-right shock jock, and the show that talks about politics and religion. Jesus Christ is our referee, so it's always nice and clean. Real quick, I'm going to point you to the website, churchandstate.media. Fill out this form for us, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to get our newsletter and, of course, a personal phone call from yours truly. I called about 10 of you or something like that yesterday. That was fun. Thanks, Chris. We'll talk about that later. Also, while you're there, check out the most recent episodes. We continue to cover hard-hitting subjects, great people, great guests, and we are doing a kind of a special emphasis right now on some Spokane races. So check those out. Also, our featured guests, we've had some incredible people over the years, and you can see the partial list right there. We have a lot more if you go to the featured guest tab, but with every single one of them, you just hit their name, and it'll take you right to the episode or episodes, because some have been on multiple times. Also, peruse through the great affiliates that we have. These are companies that Chris and I believe in, that we use. Every single one of these, you can use that promo code Church and State with them. Some of them, you get a discount with it, but with every single one of them, you're going to be helping to support us and our cause. And speaking of support, hit the donate button for us. Keep us alive on NRBTV, Prepper Broadcasting Network, Your News, CDM. I mean, we're on a lot of different platforms here, newscasters. And a new one coming up, Chris, I haven't even told you about that, Faith in Freedom TV. I secured that in Tulsa, and we're going to expand. We're pulling the trigger, ladies and gentlemen. National syndication AM, FM radio. Thank you for all of you who gave some money to support that. We still do need some more, so please hit the donate button for us. Lastly, if you want to get a hold of us, churchandstate1776 at proton.me. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Alan Nolan. He is running for State Rep District 6. He's a lieutenant, retired lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force. Thank him for his service there. And he's lived in Spokane since 2015. He's got a beautiful family, 2 sons and a daughter, and a wife. He's worked in private industry in the business environment, and he's also done some amazing things as a leader within the Meade School District and now running for 6th District. Alan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Caleb. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, real pleasure. We got to know each other when you were running for Meade School District, and Meade had some problems, and then all of a sudden the people had it up to here and decided to elect a whole bunch of conservatives.
And that's actually gone pretty well.
It has.
I appreciate you had me out so we could talk and let people know what's going on with the Meade School District and what our plans were. And you can see that in the time since we've brought on a conservative school board, that although people had concerns that somehow we were going to create ideological conflict, it's been just the opposite. And what we've done is we've produced results. And a lot of that is the success that we've had there is a big part of the reason why I'm running, because I see a lot of these similar, more broad problems at the state level. And I think that the skills that help me at the Meade School District are the same ones that are going to help change the conversation, move the needle there at the state.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You know, for a while in Spokane, county, there was this kind of this war. It was a friendly war, but it was between Meade and Central Valley. Who was the best school district? 81's was out. You guys, sorry, you were out. But it was this kind of soft war between Central Valley and Meade. And then all of a sudden, 3 conservatives get elected. Only 1 got into Central Valley, and it was like, it shifted. And it was like, it's obvious. Meade is the best school district, and people want their kids in Meade School District.
It is a great school district, and don't take it personally, District 81, sorry. But there is the ability to transfer between districts. I'm just throwing that out there. And I love Central Valley too, but I'm very proud of what we've been able to do. We've got great staff, and we've been able to support them by letting them focus on education, what their core job is, and the reason why that they're doing this mission. And one of the things we've been able to do recently that I think is just fantastic, we've actually been able to approve new curriculum. That's something district hadn't been able to do for financial reasons for over a decade. And we brought in a instructional materials committee that was made up of both teachers and then a strong group of parents, so that we made sure that there was good vetting by the community as well, in addition to our educators. And so we brought in new social studies curriculum for our middle school, stuff that hadn't been done for over a decade. Our teachers have been cobbling together just based on what they're finding out there on the internet. And that is going to allow, in fact, my daughter, this is pretty funny, because when I brought the books home to review them as well, she goes, "Oh, you've got the McGraw-Hill," because she's in the middle school, and she'd been part of this test bed of some of the curriculum. And so she's seen one of them that she didn't like at all, and she saw the other. So she was really excited to see that textbook. She didn't take me up on the offer, though, when I said that she could study it some more while I had it there. I don't really understand what's up with that.
It sounds like a typical kid right there. What I love, and especially as I'm looking at what you've accomplished, and not only in the school district, obviously within the business sector, with your career in the Air Force, you are a man that is very solutions-oriented. But what I love is you've jumped into government at that low level of the school board, which is phenomenal. And now you want to move up, and you want to move up to the state, because there's a lot of problems in Washington State. And I see a man that's been tested through the school district that's provided solutions that have actually worked. Why wouldn't we send you to Olympia?
What I believe is we need to be looking at our politicians and judging them based on their competence as well as their character, and not their character in terms of what they say, but what they do. So I would second that. And actually, let's jump into why those skills, that background that I have, that's actually allowing me to have success. So I moved here in 2015 after I retired out of the Air Force. I entered the Air Force through the academy. I grew up in Michigan, actually. And so after I graduated the academy, I went through pilot training, flew a couple of assignments in Black Hawk helicopters, a modified version of it. In fact, you may have, for those of you who were watching the news when the war was going on with Iran, you saw the helicopters were flying over Iran in the middle of the day. That was a combat search and rescue mission that I initially did. Transitioned over, did special operations for a couple of years, then had the opportunity to go and start flying F-16s, did that for a couple of assignments, had an exchange tour with the Canadians flying Canadian Hornets, and then my last flying assignment, I was teaching new pilots how to become pilots in the primary trainer, which is the T6 Texan down in Texas, oddly enough, and got a chance to command a flying squadron there. Of course, along the way, I've done other things where I'm deployed. I'm out in Jordan for one of my last assignments where we're helping to stand the Jordanian Air Force up when we went after ISIS, kicked them out of Syria. And that sort of experience in the military where everybody's got a role, you stand up, and sometimes you're the supporting individual, sometimes you're the leader, but you recognize your role, have a role, you work it together as a team, and your focus is on that mission, achieving that goal. And that's really the metric that we should be looking at.
Absolutely. I mean, any veteran is going to have some certain leadership skills and abilities that are installed in them. And, especially at that level, Lieutenant Colonel, they don't give that rank out to just anybody, ladies and gentlemen. All right. You got to earn that for sure. So let's talk about, let's first talk about some problems in Olympia. Okay.
Sure.
And then we'll get into solutions, because we always want to be solutions oriented on this show. I don't think it's hard for the people of Washington to look around, to maybe take their head away from their phone for a second and see that Washington has a lot of problems.
The first one I think you look at is just we are completely irresponsible on the spending. So over the last 8 years, the legislature's added about $131 billion in new taxes. But we still have a deficit. How is that possible? And that spending from the state government is growing well beyond what the population growth is. And, if it had matched the population growth, I could understand that. But clearly we're choosing to spend more on more things. And I don't know if anyone out there can look at their life and say, based on that spending, my life is better. I know mine is not. I know my roads are not better. I know that the downtown is not safe. There's a whole range of things. My schools absolutely across the state are not better. They're getting better in Meade, but we'll touch on that later. So the first thing we got to do is get spending under control. And ultimately, part of the problem is that government is trying to solve all of our problems, and government should not be the solution. We need to hand that back to the people. Having people make the decisions based on their own individual needs and desires is a better long-term solution for our state, as opposed to having somebody an elite, somebody who believes that they know best for everyone else, making the decision for everyone else without awareness of what their situation is.
I completely agree with that. I mean, it's so obvious that throwing money at a problem is not working. And I love to apply this at just the individual level, right? We make it simplistic so that everybody can see the point here. If you have, I mean, all of us are working, right? And you have a certain salary that you're getting. And if you spend above that, what do you have to do, right? You got to go take out a loan. You got to go take out credit cards. And there's inflation and all of this that's associated with it, right? That credit card companies are making money. It doesn't work for very long, right? Your house is going to go under. You're going to have to declare bankruptcy. And that's the predicament that we find ourselves with our state right now, is they're just spending more and more money. And when it comes time to pay the piper, well, they just look at the taxpayers and say, you get the bill.
Yeah, and a competing podcast that I will not mention here because I don't want to advertise for them on your show, did a great job of talking about the difference between the two parties and who's representing them and what their background is.
I don't mind if you say the podcast.
No, I'm not going to do it. We're not going there. But the short story is, when you looked at the Republicans, you've got people from law enforcement, you've got people from the military, you've got people from the business world. When you looked at the Democratic Party, you have labor activists, you've got folks from community leaders, just to use a national type example. You got teachers, people who are not the ones who are having to apply business sense and that bottom line type of outcome to make sure that the business can still remain. These are folks who, if they run out of money, then they just go, well, we just need to get more money, and use the force of the government in order to create that revenue stream for themselves, at least in the near term. And the business part of it is a big part of why the qualifications that I'm bringing that is important. Is that I've had a successful business along with my wife for the last 10 years. We've grown. We've provided good jobs to people. We've done a good job on the projects that get recognition based on that. And bringing that type of understanding of all of this ties into actually being able to stay solvent and being able to have what you have planned actually provide an outcome that people want to voluntarily opt in for and pay their money for. That's how the free market is supposed to work, and we need to move more towards that type of idea in our government.
I completely agree. Once again, recently I was on a flight. I was coming back from Tulsa, and I love Southern people because they're just so friendly. In the Pacific Northwest, we're friendly, but we don't typically initiate the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
But the South, they're just like, hey, where are you from? And so I got to talking to this father and son. They had never been this far west. They were heading here to Spokane to go to Coeur d'Alene to play golf. And so they started asking me, like, what should we go and see? And I told them right off the bat, bypass Spokane. And I don't want to say that.
Yeah.
Right? I want to be able to say that our downtown is beautiful, that the restaurant scene is great, the Riverfront Park is so fun, walk along the river. But the sad reality is right now, I can't say that about my city. I don't want to direct some people from Tennessee to go get mugged downtown or to go watch people doing fentanyl out in the open.
Yeah. The U-Haul index is meaningful, where the U-Hauls that are being rented for one way out of state far exceed those that are coming on in. And it's because we are not bringing accountability either to our government or within our communities. And accountability is critical in terms of building safe and stable communities. The open air drug use that you see, and when you drive downtown, you see somebody, it's hard not to see it going on. And we need to solve that. That is not sympathetic in terms of allowing people to live outside in this sort of environment and continue to be addicted to drugs. That's not uplifting people. And that's the problem, is that when we are spending this money, we aren't accountable in terms of trying to achieve results. And that has direct impacts because it's affecting other people's lives.
Absolutely, it is, and Spokane has an interesting situation as well, being that we're so close to Idaho. People, maybe they're not necessarily moving yet. A lot of people want to, but they are driving over to Post Falls, to Coeur d'Alene, to do their shopping, to go get gasoline, to go to restaurants. It's kind of unique, and it really, as far as the rest of the state goes, I don't know really any other city that enjoys that benefit. Well, I should say major, big city that enjoys that benefit for its citizens. But once again, we don't want that for Spokane. We want to keep our industry here. We want to keep the jobs here, and it's just not happening.
That is absolutely true. People are doing it because, one, there's that incentive that's financial, but it's also, I think, because there's a bit of an idea that Olympia is not listening to me. So I'm going to go out of my way, because I've seen people who have driven it probably cost them money in order to go save that money. Or if you think about the time value of how long it takes you to do it, it probably doesn't pay out, or it's pennies. But a lot of it is just like, I do not want my money to go to Olympia. And that is why people are willing to do it as well. That's a really dangerous place to be.
It certainly is. And I mean, yeah, I drive over for gasoline in Idaho all the time. And I live out in Green Bluff. So it's not exactly a quick trip for me. But also, when I want to take my wife out to a nice romantic dinner, I think I'd rather go downtown Coeur d'Alene. I can stare out at the lake, not have pedestrians walking by me that are disheveled and doing the fentanyl kind of zombie lurching. But go downtown Spokane, and that's what you're going to see.
That's not the type of romance you've got for your wife. Taking them to zombie, but taking your wife to zombie.
The people watching is fun, I guess. I guess you could say that for Spokane. You got the people watching down for sure. Growing up, I'm going off of your bullet points here, but wanting our children to grow up, have the same opportunities that we had. You and I, we had a lot of opportunities. America was the land of opportunity. And it was primarily because of something that you just said, is that government shouldn't be the solution to every problem that we have. America used to be the country that grabbed ourselves by just picked ourselves up by our bootstraps and went along and accomplished things and dreamed and looked to the stars. We don't do that so much anymore.
I'll tell you what, one of the times when I was deployed in the military, we were in Kenya, and I wasn't on this particular trip, but some of the guys who I served with, they went to a local school, and one of the kids stood up and asked, basically, hey, why do you guys have so much money? And the guy who I had told me about it, he felt a little bit, he was almost apologetic, and I take the opposite approach. You know what? When our forefathers arrived here, it wasn't that all of these streets and highways and buildings were here and we just moved in. These were things that were built over time through hard work, and that the money to pay for that, it's not that we went out and we took it away from someone else. We created that based on our own labor. So I don't think that we need to be apologetic. American ingenuity and American drive is what has built America, and that has actually gone, and it has been beneficial for the entire world, because the money that we have and we spend has allowed others to, when they've got the opportunity, chart their own course, build their own enterprise, and build wealth within their family and within their community, within their nation. That is the model that I think we need to look for.
Once again, we were in complete agreement there. It's government is always the one that hassles us, that creates this bureaucratic red tape that you have to literally hire people to navigate through their system because you're violating this code or this law. We need to move away from that. We need to go back to being industrious people that see a problem and tackle it and provide solutions. And once again, like you said, we've accomplished so much. America, when you look at all of the inventions and things that have benefited humanity, so much of that comes from America. And we seem to be on a downward spiral from that. But it's not too late. I really, truly believe that it's not too late. We can pick this thing back up and go back to the original intent.
Yeah. I'll touch on that last comment here in a moment, but what I want to actually just talk about is what you said in terms of the red tape and the bureaucracy. And what I want to tell you about that is, so we're electing people for now. So we need people who are able to both deal with the situation and can chart a path forward to improving it. That's one of the things that I've learned how to do between being a business owner, being a director, then the current vice president on the Meade School Board, as well as in being in the military. Is I understand and I can see how bureaucracies work, and I know how to work within them. So I've got the ability to identify where there are the players where we can move forward, improve situations and make progress. And that's what we need to be looking for. Is we need somebody who is able to, has the skills already based on prior experience to be able to work within what is admittedly a broken system. All right, so that talks about, on that kind of addresses what we need to be doing in terms of having leaders who can fix problems now, make things better. And now I'm going to turn back to what you said in terms of that hope for America. We talk about America being a beacon for the world, and that's why we've got so many people who are looking to come here, because they see opportunity, they see freedoms, and they want that for themselves and for their families. Bad policy here in Washington, it's dimmed that, but I'll tell you that the people of Washington have not changed fundamentally, except for maybe the leftists that are out there. They're a little bit different, but that's a whole other topic. However, we still have that same light, that flame within us, within our state, and we've got the ability to turn around and turn Washington back into that crucible that gave us Google, Amazon, Starbucks, Microsoft, Boeing. That can be our future.
I once again agree, and all of those companies, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, are moving. They're leaving the state. What do you think happens? It's a great question, right? No matter where you align, politically speaking, when the top earners leave the state, where are the taxes going to come from? When you tax or eat the rich, as you like to say, and they can move, they have the ability, they have the money to be able to move their entire operations to a more friendly state. What do you think is going to happen to us? That's a great question. I think the answer is rather obvious. All right. You also, on one of your bullet points, you talk, and I wanted to return to this, you want great schools. And we do. We truly do. And people who watch the show know I'm not a fan of public education. I do see that Meade is doing some really great things. But I'm a realist as well. I always preface this whenever I bring up this conversation. I know that a lot of people can't afford private schools. A lot of people don't feel capable to homeschool their kids. So with what we have, with the system that's currently available to us, we can improve upon public education. Alan sitting next to me is proof of that. But let's talk about wanting great schools throughout Washington.
You know, let's talk specifically actually on what we can do in order to help take our existing public school system and make it better. And one of those, I've talked about some of the things that I've done on the Meade School Board and in the business world, but even though I'm busy campaigning, I'm actually also taking other steps in order to help make our community better. One, I'm standing against STA Prop 1, that's the Spokane Transit Authority.
You beat me to the punch. I can't wait to talk about this one.
Yeah, I don't want to dive into that. But another one that's really important is the federal scholarship tax credit. This was passed in the most recent budget, the One Big Beautiful Bill. And the short story on that is that, what if you as a citizen were able to say, I want to take some of my federal tax money that I'm spending no matter what, and I want to dedicate that towards education where I want it to be, how I want it to spend. That's actually possible in 2027 based on the federal scholarship tax credit. What it allows is for individuals to make a $1,700 donation to what's called a scholarship granting organization. That scholarship granting organization can then provide scholarships. Now, typically when we think scholarship, we're thinking about an individual, but it doesn't have to be. It could be to a public school. It could be to a private school. It could be to an individual. It could cover things like textbooks, curriculum. It could cover additional teachers, say, to help with kids who are having trouble reading. It's a wide range of educational-related expenses. Here's the catch, though, and there's always a catch. The state has to opt in. Governor Bob Ferguson has until January 1st in order to do this. And this is one of those things where what I'm encouraging people to do is reach out to the governor's office. I understand he rarely listens to us, but if he gets overwhelming and consistent contact saying, hey, just opt in for this. It doesn't cost the state of Washington anything. Unfortunately, the WEA has got his ear and has asked him not to do it. I think that they believe that all that money is going to go to private schools. I don't think that that's true. I think people would be happy to take some of their federal taxes and apply it to a scholarship grant organization that could be helping District 81, CV, Meade, any of these schools. And I think that this is one of those things where this is an opportunity for citizens to lower their own taxes ultimately, because if we've got money that the taxpayer ultimately has got some voice in terms of how it's spent, then it can't just be eaten up in contract negotiations, for example. Then some of the need for levies can start to drop away. So your property taxes could fall based on you opting to take some of the tax money that you're already going to have to pay and dedicate it to the schools. All we need is for Governor Ferguson to go, yes, Washington wants to be a part of this to make our schools better.
So, Alan, you're telling me that in the future, I could see an election season without a levy or a school bond for the schools here? Like,
I'm not gonna go that far. I will tell you that the basic education funding, people would not like that in their schools. There's still going to be need for example, the scholarship granting organizations are not going to cover football. People want football, and that's not covered in basic education. So there's still going to be some of that. But what if we could drop it by a third, a half? I think that is something that's possible. And if nothing else, you've got the opportunity for you are making that decision you've got the voice on where that money's spent. Because if that scholarship granting organization doesn't spend the money, grant the money in the way that you want to, you don't give it to them next year. You find somebody else. Again, that kind of goes back to the free market.
Certainly
Reward
does.
the people who are doing what you want.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, on those, all these levies, and I don't just beat up on the school levies, but, fire, police, EMS, all that kind of stuff. You see them all the time. And if you examine your property taxes, it's literally a death by 1,000 cuts.
It is,
You keep voting these in, and it's like, yeah, it's only a small fraction of the property value. And it's like, yeah, but add them all up together, they start to hurt a little bit.
It's real money.
Yeah, it really is. Okay. Now, you brought up the STA, and we might have to extend beyond the hard break here talking about this, but I just got to say, I love the fact that you're not afraid to go after this, because this is one of those subjects that people can throw bombs at you, right? They can accuse you of not caring about people who can't afford their own cars. They got to rely on public transportation, but you're not afraid of that. And you see a problem, one that costs us money, and you're like, hey, could we do this better? I'm not saying I hate all public transportation. I'm putting words in your mouth here, but can we do it better?
Anybody who kind of makes that argument is actually misrepresenting the claim, because what we're talking about is the Spokane Transit Authority, STA Prop 1. And what they would like to do is renew a sales tax of 0.2% that was approved back in 2016 and was advertised as being a temporary tax. They want to renew it for another 20 years. So in the 10 years or so that they have had this tax available, what they've done with it is they've banked that money. They have added $234 million in unallocated funds. Just think about it as being in your checking account or your savings account. That's essentially what they've done with this money. It's not gone towards projects. It clearly isn't needed. The other thing that's getting lost in this is there's already another 0.6% sales tax that it's permanent. It's not even something the voters are going to ask about. And the only way you'd have a voice on it is if we were to have some sort of initiative go, listen, we're not doing that any longer. But that still is in effect, and that provides another $3 billion during this 20-year time period that STA would like to have renewed under STA Prop 1. So to take this and say this is going to keep us from operating, that's not true. It hasn't been paying for operations. It's been going to a bank account. There's already significant funds through our taxes that are going to continue funding operations.
Yeah, I'm going to pause you there. We're going to come back. We're not done with this conversation whatsoever. Ladies and gentlemen, I want all of you to be a walking billboard. Some of us don't have platforms such as Church and State, but you know what? We can wear t-shirts and engage in great conversations with Christians and patriots all across the country. Stand Up Now apparel is the best t-shirts out there. These are American made, owned by a Christian and a patriot, and the material, it's like getting a warm hug from yours truly. One of the better things as well is there's no tags. I hate tags. I know you do as well. I don't know how many times I've cut off a tag and ended up with a hole in my shirt. You never have to worry about that with Stand Up Now apparel. These are the best shirts out there with the greatest messages. Let me give you a few examples. There's a t-shirt out there that says Armed with Ephesians 6 on it. I got to tell you, when I wear this in town, I get a lot of comments, a lot of eyebrow raises. There's other shirts that include pure
blood in Hebrew, obviously in reference to the vaccines. And also, you can get Church and State merch there as well. We've got our flagship shirt, I Was Born for a Storm, with Church and State right on it. You got to order this shirt. Go to Stand Up Now Apparel for t-shirts and hats. All of this great merch with great Christian and patriotic messages. Remember to use that promo code Church and State.
And we are back. Thank you for staying with us. You're over at churchandstate.media, and we're going to go right back to our guest. But real quick, I do have to plug one of our awesome affiliates. And who am I thinking? I'm thinking, well, let's just go with Mark 37. Chris, I love Mark 37. I work for the company. Obviously, you know that. And we just got back from Tulsa doing a lot there. I'll explain that on a different episode. But I want all of you to have a Ghost phone and a Ghost laptop. I want you to control your own data. Right? I want you to not be concerned about government spying on you, about big tech spying on you, really anything spying on you. You can have a phone that you're in charge of your own data with. Sounds like an incredible idea, right? Well, check them out, ladies and gentlemen. Mark37.com. Use that coupon code Church and State. You're going to get a discount, and you'll help to support us. Also, one more time, hit the donate button for us, please. Keep us alive, keep us well, keep us thriving and surviving. We're doing so much here, incredible interviews, and we need your help to stay on the air. So anything you can do, $10, $20 a month, whatever it looks like, we appreciate it. All right, with that, let's go back to our guest, Alan Nolan, running for State Rep District 6. And we're talking about the STA and what they're currently doing. You have a sticker on Facebook that I got to show people because it made me laugh. Okay, this is a great sticker. You're using Superman, you know. I mean, talking about
not Superman. That's trademark.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, well, I think we all know who it kind of is. An American icon. Let's just put it that way. But it's a great sticker here. Explain what this means to you.
Well, this is just an example of Superman. I've seen on Superman movies, and not that this is Superman. This is clearly a different superhero.
It's a cheap knockoff, right?
I don't think it was made outside the U.S. I think he's still an American-made hero. We're going to stay with American-made. But ultimately, when he did that to save the people who are on that bus. And it would be pretty easy to lift up the STA buses because there's just not that much weight to them with no passengers. And what's the rarest thing on earth is a full STA bus. So
you've seen one? That's like seeing a unicorn.
That's what I'm saying. It's the rarest thing on earth. And by the way, I actually wanted to go back to your sponsor. I was not aware of Mark 37. I'm gonna. You've got one who you're gonna have go checking out the site. So
all right. Well, I know a guy you can talk to about that.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah, he's sitting right here. Yeah. No, the STA, they truly do frustrate me. Not only are the buses almost always empty every single time I see them. But the STA Plaza, go talk to any police officer in Spokane. They'll tell you that's kind of a hotbed for criminal activity. And now they want to take Division, our main north-south road, and they want to actually take a lane and designate it for STA travel. Where if you ride in it, and by the way, there's flock cameras all over the place. So if you're driving your car in there, guess who's getting a ticket? That's frustrating, Alan. That really makes me mad. We're already, the North-South Freeway, man, I want it to be completed.
Oh, I'd love to have it completed.
But it's not, and we still got probably a number of years before we do. And now they want to take the North-South biggest road we use and make it a 2-lane road instead of a 3?
Well, maybe this is a conspiracy theory, but I get the feeling that they don't like people on the north side anyway. Because you look at what's going on right now, when they've got the Green Street Bridge, they've got that knocked down at the exact same time they've closed the Maple Street Bridge. They don't want anybody going north of the river, or maybe they don't want us coming south of the river. And this is another example. They've done these road diets on Monroe where I've had people complain to me, oh, well, if we don't fund STA and we don't allow them to operate, think about all these extra cars we're going to have on the road. One, that's not the topic. This is not money that's funding STA. And two, who are those people who you think are going to be driving cars? Because those buses are empty. And when traffic comes to a stop, invariably it's because we're on one of those streets that has had a road diet, and the bus stops, and everybody has to sit there and wait for them to have maybe one person get on and get off. It doesn't make sense. And you look at the size of these buses, if you're somebody who is a fan of, say, the Climate Commitment Act or reductions in CO2, how does STA help with that? Because you're driving a much larger vehicle over the same distances, and you're not carrying that many people. It's all mass times the velocity. That's the energy that it needs. So that energy is coming from somewhere. And with some of these electric vehicles, the claim is that it's clean. Well, think of it more like a coal-powered vehicle, because there's a coal plant somewhere that's contributing power to the grid that's allowing that bus to have energy. You're just transferring where that pollution is occurring. And more importantly, the same thing with these electric vehicles. Those electric vehicles are somewhere around 40 to 50% more heavy than a traditional vehicle. Yep. You have to have that energy in order to move that vehicle. So the amount of energy that you're expending in order to move the bus, the heavier vehicle, at this point, there isn't that trade-off. So this isn't an argument about, hey, is there a role for public transportation? It isn't an argument about, are electric vehicles, maybe something that we continue to work on. It's a question of whether or not we're there and if that's the right way to spend our money right now, based on the actual technology and society that we have.
I completely agree, and it's once again, it's pointing to that free market. Look, some of you may not remember this, but there used to be private buses. There still are a few out there, but there used to be a big market for private buses. Well, as cars got more affordable, people had more disposable income, they moved away from that. Why? Because it's just nicer to ride in your own car. I don't think I have to really sell you on that one. And so they kind of went the way of the dodo, these private buses. But the government, in all of its wisdom, said, no, we got to make it public. We got to make it public transportation. And it doesn't really work all that well. And you can see just example after example of this, right? Before, when you'd go to a city, there were taxis everywhere, right? Taxis all over the place. And then the free market introduces Uber and Lyft, and now you don't see as many taxis. It's just the way of the free market. Why get the government involved and just make a mess of the whole thing?
And I think it really comes down to trying to push a policy rather than find and identify correctly an agreed upon problem and then what the goal is. And that's one of the things that I intend to do in Olympia is there's no accountability, in part because for programs, in part because we aren't identifying what is that problem and what's that goal, and then what are those metrics in terms of how are we going to measure for how we get there. Every piece of legislation that's passed should identify, here's what the goal is, here's how we intend to measure it. And then at the 5-year point, I would advocate for there should be reauthorization. If you can't go back and based on what the problem statement, the goal, and the metrics that you're looking at, identify, is this doing a good job of achieving that? Then you probably either need to change it or get rid of that legislation. And the same thing is true with this STA conversation. The question is not whether there's a role or a need for some sort of a public transit system, but let's do it in a way that's efficient. As a conservative, I like to conserve. That includes fuel. So I do want to have these sorts of things. I want people who don't have the ability to afford a car to be able to still move around. Our society, it's a true statement. It's difficult for people to walk. And you shouldn't also, a 15-minute city may be nice and convenient in terms of if all you're doing is going to the grocery store or the park. But if you're looking for a job and the better job for you is 45 minutes away and you're willing to spend the time, we should make it a possibility for you to do that. Maybe public transportation is part of that. Maybe it's not. But ultimately, we need to measure how effective are the dollars that we're spending towards the problems that we identified, the prioritized problems.
Yeah, I would agree. Once again, we tend to be agreeing quite a lot on this interview. Last question is kind of a bigger. Well, I'll probably have a second one. There'll probably be 2 more questions. But right now, the current environment in Olympia, we've got the Democrats with a supermajority, right? It's very hard for conservatives, Republicans to get things done in Olympia right now. How are you going to navigate that minefield, as it were?
Well, let's actually point out something. They don't have a supermajority, but that is one of the concerns, because if they do, then these unconstitutional income tax, and if you look at state Supreme Court precedent, it's clear that there is precedent that says the so-called millionaires tax should not be legal. I don't have any faith that our Supreme Court is going to find that. I also know that the Democrats who push this recognize the state constitution clearly says you can't have, if you're going to have something like an income tax, it has to be across the board. It can't be selective as the legislation was written. But the concern is that if they win in the 6th, if they win a seat in the 4th, if they win 2 seats in the 6th, then they do achieve that supermajority, and then they can change the Constitution so that it says whatever they want. They can change it so they get rid of these pesky initiatives where we're able to get some of these small wins. And that's what I want to point to. For the STA Prop 1, I think we need to be looking for these small wins. This is a good spot to take a stand where people have had enough of taxes and they're ready to stand. And they should be going to the polls anyway in order to pick the representatives who are going to end up on the general election or the candidates. This is also an opportunity to say, no, we're not going to pay that tax where you clearly do not need it for that stated need. It's not related. You're just banking it. So we need to look for small wins where we push these initiatives across the finish line, make sure they end up on the ballot, and then vote for them. That we turn back STA Prop 1. And then at Olympia, we make sure that they don't end up with a supermajority so they can just do truly whatever they want. As far as making progress and moving the needle, so I'll go back to the millionaire's tax. That's a good example because on that vote, there were 8 Democrats who peeled away from their party and realized that, no, this is not the right step for Washington. So looking to work with them, that's one thing, create a relationship with them. Go into these communities that are either purple to blue and start talking to the folks there who have those conservative ideas, helping to prop them up, help them to find candidates where maybe we can start adding to our numbers. Additionally, bringing forth amendments where we're focusing on identifying the goal as part of that legislation, identifying the metric, and stating to the voters that, hey, we will go back and we'll look at that. And that's going to be the determination, the reauthorization part I spoke about before, as to whether or not we continue to spend that money or have this policy.
Once again, great stuff here. And, I look, I've signed the initiative and I love the initiative process. And I don't want this millionaire's tax to be part of our law. And I think most of us are intelligent enough to realize they're not stopping at the millionaires. Okay, it's going to go down, right? It's going to trickle down to all of us. It's going to be assessed value. You're going to have your home in there. It's going to get real messy. But I look at the $30 card tabs and I'm like, oh, we all voted that way too. Washington said, yeah, nope, we know better than you do. One more question for you that I'm a nerd. I think everybody's aware of that watches this program. And I'm a constitutional nerd, and I'm a staunch anti-federalist, right? I would have opposed the Federalists. And because of that, I love the Bill of Rights. And so I'd love to ask every politician, out of the original 10 here, the Bill of Rights, do you have a favorite one, and what would that be?
I'd have to go with the freedom of speech, because I think that's fundamental to democracy. And I didn't actually realize that none of these nations in Europe actually have got free speech rights until we saw what's been going on recently, where people are they're being convicted based on social media posts, stuff that's just preposterous. No one should have the right to not feel uncomfortable, and words are not violence. That's pretty clear. We need to have that conversation. We need to continue to have that conversation, because conversations that are uncomfortable. Because when we don't, unfortunately, you have things like the assassination of Charlie Kirk. If you aren't willing to go out and actually speak to the other person, then they just become an other. And there's somebody who you can do any wide range of unspeakable acts against, or you could allow it to happen either by someone else or by just turning your head away from it. We saw that in Germany, where the people may have known what was going on. They claimed that they didn't, but really they were just turning a blind eye to something that they were willing to allow happen to the others.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic answer. Obviously, the First Amendment with 5 different rights, actually God-given rights in it. But freedom of speech is very important, and obviously as a talk show host, it's very important to me. All right, let's promote the websites because I want people to get involved. Nolan for the number 4wa.com. Chris is going to bring that up for you. You can see it right there. Alan, I know you need help. I know you need donations. I know you need people to walk the streets with you as your doorbell. Take the opportunity to pitch people getting involved with you.
Yeah, really, it's that everybody needs to be active. Everybody's got a role. And we're at the point where I'd like to get the word out, especially with this STA Prop 1. get out there and vote. This is something I think that can be a driver for votes. So if you weren't aware of this before, guess what? Your neighbor probably doesn't know about it either. Let them know. The PTBA, the area that's going to be affected by this sales tax, I wish we'd had a picture of it, but it's extensive. It's Cheney, it's all of Spokane, it's most of the north side, it's most of Spokane Valley. Odds are, if you live in the Spokane Valley area, you are going to be affected by this tax. And if you didn't know about it, well, one, you need to act. Got to extend use your constitutional rights, and help me in terms of getting that message out. Whether it's you personally, or I'd love to have you come on out and come to the doorsteps with me, meet voters, help explain what's at stake in these various elections, so that everyone can make their community better, and we can move Washington in the right direction.
Yeah, and they can follow you on Facebook as well. And what's the Facebook page there?
So if you search for Nolan for the number 4 again, you'll find that, and it's Nolan for Washington.
Okay, so you can follow on Facebook. You can go to the website, nolan4wa.com. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on this show, to get the message out there. It's been great having you on as a guest. It's been a very positive interview.
Thanks, Caleb. I really appreciate you're giving me the opportunity to speak with you.
Absolutely, and I will say this as well. If you're looking for endorsements, you have mine. Take that, whatever you want to do with it. But I definitely know that I would be voting for you if I lived in the 6th. Unfortunately, I don't, but I definitely endorse you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Caleb.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. A great candidate for trying to restore some sanity to Washington State. I think this is the man that we need to send to Olympia. Church and State is brought to you in part by Colonial Life, Spokane Independent Agents, Finders Insurance, and Mark37.com. I'm Caleb Collier. I was born for a storm.
Welcome to the fire.
This is Caleb Collier with Church and State Media. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not sleeping on my pillow, do you even patriot? I got to tell you, this is the most wonderful stuff from a man who's given it all for your freedoms. Whether it be the pillow, the sheets, or the slippers, I absolutely adore My Pillow. My Pillow has the greatest products around. I know when I want to shuffle around in my bathrobe and slippers and yell at the neighbors, of course I'm buying from My Pillow. I need you to head on over to churchandstate.media, scroll over to shop, because every single time that you purchase any of these products using the promo code Church and State, you ensure that we keep our message out on the air.
I thank everybody for your support in using promo code Church and State. You guys go to mypillow.com/Church and State too, and then you get your own little platform right there, everybody.
Hey, this is Caleb Collier, and I know you're excited for the Church and State podcast. Now, as a Christian patriot, I love precious metals, whether it's gold, silver, palladium, and of course, lead. And this is why I want you to go over to Ponderay Ballistics, don't ask me how to spell it, for all of your ammunition needs. Remember, that's PENDOREILLE ballistics.com for all of your ammunition needs. I want you to head on over to churchandstate.media/shop. Go to Ponderay Ballistics and have a shooting good time. Hey, this is Caleb Collier with the Church and State podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I want all of you to go to Galileo.com. You need to stay connected no matter what comes our way. Whether it's government intrusion or a meteor falling from the sky, Galileo has you connected. As a Marine veteran, I can tell you that communications is essential. Galileo has you connected. Whether it's worldwide coverage, uncensored content, or real-time alerts, Galileo is going to make sure that you're connected with your friends, family, and neighbors. Just head on over to churchandstate.media, scroll over to shop, and hit Galileo.com. Make sure to ask them for a free bivy stick, and make sure to use that promo code Church and State.